All right. Hello, hello, everyone. How is everybody today? Who is joining us? Let's see. Fairy Freak, you are here really early. My goodness, welcome in. And Janica, you guys are both here bright and early, ready to go, ready to learn something today. And Mrs. Nosbig, Alexandrina, you guys, again, I know I say this all the time, but I love to see all the familiar names in the chat here. Love to see that you guys are all coming back and enjoying our lessons all the time and getting this great free education. So welcome in, everyone. Glad to see you here today. Happy Thursday, I think it is today. Some days I just can't keep track of what day it is, but I think it's Thursday. So welcome, everybody. Just getting a few nails ready to go here. I think we're just going to do one nail today, but give you a really fun design to go with this nail. And today's design was something somebody had basically requested on our Twitch live stream this morning. So if you guys join us on our Twitch channel, we have a live stream on there, usually 3 days a week. And that's usually same schedule as our YouTube channel here. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. So you can always join us on our live stream there. But our inspo today was for a let's see, March birthdays are coming up, and Aquamarine is the birthstone for March. So that was the request for today. So that's going to be my inspiration for a design. And I'm just going to clip down that nail a little bit shorter. And I think we are just about ready to go here. All right, let me show you what we're going to be using today. Just so you guys, if you're going to want to do this nail along with me, you can gather up your products and get those ready to go. We're going to start with our full cover extra long square nail tips. And these are, you can see they are the full length square nail. You can adhere them all the way onto that nail. It's not just that quarter well tip. So these are going to go on the whole nail. And again, those are the extra long square full cover. And then for our colors and our design today, we're going to kind of keep it simple-ish. I'm going to say simple because I'm not using a whole lot of different colors. All I'm going to be using is our ManiQ color. This is our gel polish. We're going to be using Aquamarine 101 because Aquamarine is the birthstone for March. So that's what we're going with. We're going to be combining that with our ManiQ base. And again, I'm going to show you how we're going to use that. I'm not going to spoil the secret just yet, but we're going to use those two colors together. And then we're also going to add in a little bit of our white striping gel paint. And this one is called T-shirt. So we got our white striper gel. And this has that really nice skinny little liner brush in there. So that's going to be great for our detail work that we're going to be doing today. And then our glitter that we're going to be using, this is actually the same one that I was using, I think it was earlier in the week, and I misspoke. I think I called it Surf, but this one is actually Fame Orbit. So this is a beautiful, kind of an aqua color, kind of a teal aqua. Yeah, just a beautiful sparkle in there. So that's what we're going to be using today. So that's really all of the colors. That's all of the kind of the gist of the colors that we're using. So like I said, nothing too wild and crazy, but we are going to be doing a beautiful nail with this. So guys, welcome in. I'm glad that you are here, and let's go ahead and get started. So all I've done so far on the nail is I've trimmed that a little bit shorter. And when I do any kind of a full cover tip or extension, whether it's a tip or a sculptured nail, I do like to clip off that kind of that extra free edge on there. So this way, when we do put our tips on, that extra free edge isn't going to interfere with how our tip fits. So we always want to trim that down a little bit shorter, just like I've got here. And then I'm going to kind of shape that up a little bit. So just give it a quick little shape. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect in shape, just to kind of smooth out the edges. And then notice I do kind of taper in these corners just a little bit. Now, when you are filing into the corners down here, you want to make sure that you're not filing all the way back down into the skin here. You just want to kind of catch that little edge of the free edge. Okay, again, don't want to be filing back into those corners, into those nail grooves, just that free edge. And really, we just are trying to kind of clean up that shape so that there's not any rough edges around there. it doesn't have to be perfect. So that's what we're going to start with. Then we're going to go to our prep. So we're going to always start prepping just by pushing back the cuticles. And we were also talking about this on Twitch this morning. So again, if you guys were with us this morning, you kind of have a little bit of insight. But if you haven't joined us on Twitch, make sure you do. We have a lot of fun there. But in pushing back the cuticles, this shouldn't take a long time. This is a really quick and easy step. It should really only take you a few seconds per nail to just push that back. We're not trying to come in here and really clean everything up. We're not trying to do a perfect manicure or anything like that. All we need to do is just what I showed you. Just a quick push right up around those cuticles, move on to the next nail, and just kind of loosen that skin up around the base of the nail. That's it. Now, after that, we usually go into the rest of our prep, but before we actually prep these nails, I'm going to size out my tips. And you'll kind of see and understand a little bit more why I do my sizing first and then do the rest of my prep, because I don't want to kind of recontaminate the nail up here once I've prepped it. So we're going to size out the nails first, then we'll finish up our prep, and then we'll move on with application. Now, when we're sizing our tips, I want to make sure that my nail or my tip that I'm putting on is going to fit the C curve of the nail. And what I mean by the C curve is if you look down the barrel, it's the curve of the nail through here. So from side all the way up and over to the side. Technically, if you look at it from this view, wait, let's see. From this view, I guess that's going to be more of the C, but it really is just that curve of the nail. If you're looking down the barrel of the nail this way, it's the curve here. So we want to make sure that the C curve of our natural nail is going to fit the C curve of our tip. So when you're sizing your tips, you kind of want to look and check and make sure that, again, that C curve of the tip is fitting that C curve of that natural nail. So you can kind of compare them from this view and just to kind of check and see. And this one actually looks like it's going to look fairly similar to that natural nail. Now you guys, here's the thing about tips, is they're really kind of a one size fits most. So a lot of times you're going to have to customize these because they're not going to fit every nail perfectly. So we're going to kind of take a look at some different sizes here. Now this one, it did fit that C curve really nice. I don't have to really squish that on there or really use a lot of pressure to push that on there, but you can see that that nail it's really hanging off the edges quite a bit on the sides here. So we definitely don't want to go with this one. This is definitely way too big. So let's grab another size, and this one's a size 2. So we got 0, 1, 2. We'll go to a size 3 and we'll check a size 3. Let's see how that looks. So size 3, same thing. It still is going to fit that C curve really nicely, so I don't really have to squish that on or press that down really hard. This one does look like it is still hanging off the edges just a little bit, but I am going to hang on to this one just in case, because we're going to be adhering these tips on with a gel rather than just a regular glue, and sometimes that gel is going to take up a little bit more space underneath that tip. So if the nail is hanging off just a tiny little bit, it's going to be okay, but we don't want it to hang off too much. So that one's looking okay. It still fits that, that C curve really well, but we're going to try one size smaller just to make sure we've got great sizing. So we're going to go to a size 4 now. Now this one is actually looking a little bit better even. So this one, if we look down the barrel, it's still going to fit nice and flush down onto into that well or into that C curve, but it's not going to really hang off the sides too much. Maybe just a hair, but again, when we're using our gel to adhere that tip, we want that little bit of extra, just a tiny little bit of overhang, because it's going to lift it up just a little bit once we put that gel in there. So I think this one is actually fitting a little bit better than our size 3. So we've got the size 4 now, so we're going to put our size 3 back. I am going to try a size 5 just to make sure, because we always want to make sure that we're getting the best fit possible. And you guys, when you're working on clients and you're starting to kind of get used to how you size out the nails, you're going to get a little bit more of a feel for what size is where you're going to kind of start. Now, I did start with a little bit of a larger size. I knew that one wasn't going to work, but when you do start to practice using these tips a little bit more, you're going to start to just kind of know that this nail is probably going to be a size 4 or 5. Just kind of, just with practice. So with this one, if we again look kind of down the barrel of the nail, that well does fit on there pretty good. It isn't hanging off the sides too much at all, so I actually like the feel of this one. And something to note is that any style of tip, you guys, this one is our square, our extra long square tips. These do tend to be a little bit different in size than, say, maybe our almond shaped tip. So just because they're a size, let's see, this one's a 5. Just because this client is a size 5 with our XL tips, she may not be a size 5 in, say, the almond shaped tips. So you still want to make sure that you are sizing the nails out and not just kind of grabbing what you think might work, but definitely go through that sizing and make sure that they are fitting properly. Okay. So I like how this size 5 is fitting. So I think we're going to keep that one. Actually, you know what? I do want to show you something. I always like to show that you want to make sure that you don't size these too small, because I think that is kind of a tendency for a lot of people. They'll take those smaller sizes, and you can see this one, if I hold this kind of down the barrel, you can see there's actually a gap down in my in that C curve. So it's not actually fitting onto the C curve of that nail. Now, if I were to take this tip and press it down and really put some pressure onto it, it is going to kind of flare out a little bit, and it is going to fit down onto that C curve. But what happens when I let go, do you see how it just kind of pops back up? I don't want that to happen. That's going to be too tight on the nail, first of all. But when you do let go, it's going to tend to pop back up. Now, these tips, they like to keep their shape. They like to keep their C-curve shape. So if you try to squish that down and flatten that out, it's going to pop back up. And especially when we're trying to adhere these, you're going to have challenges with that wanting to pop back up, and you may end up with air pockets underneath that nail when you're curing it. So you want to make sure that you don't have to really force that tip down on there, and you don't want it to flare out. So you can kind of see here, if I do press that out, do you see how these sides kind of flare out a little bit? I don't want that to happen when I actually get that onto my client's nail, okay? So I do like to show you guys what can happen if you size out a little too small too, all right? And you guys make sure, if you're new to our channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Keep learning, keep getting all this great information. So at this point, you can see that our nail or our tip is going to fit nice into that C curve. It's going to fit pretty well from side to side, so all the way from sidewall to sidewall. But what I do notice is right up here in that cuticle area. Let me come in really close for you guys. What I'm noticing in that cuticle area is my corners of the tip are just kind of overhanging a little bit. They're not really the same shape as that natural cuticle area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to customize this. And this is where I had mentioned that tips are kind of a one size fits most. They're going to fit most clients, but you may have to do a little bit of customizing. So I'm just taking my 180 grit file buffer combo. So it's a file on one side, buffer on the other side. And I'm just going to use that to kind of round out that corner a little bit, kind of taper that in so that this is going to fit a little bit better into that cuticle area. So I don't have that those corners kind of hanging off the edges. And once we get that cleaned up, you see that little frayed edge that I'm kind of just pushing that back up. That's where my buffer side of my file buffer combo is going to really help. I'm just going to flip over to the buffer, and I'm just going to kind of smooth that edge, get rid of that little frayed edge, and our nail should be good to go. I'm going to come back and take a look here. We're going to check that sizing one more time, make sure that's going to fit right up into our cuticle area. I feel like maybe I can take just a little bit more off of these edges. So as I do my customizing, I take a little bit at a time so that I don't overfile, because overfiling is just as bad as underfiling. So you want to make sure that you're not taking off too much of that tip so that you have a gap or a space in there. But again, take off just a little bit at a time and then check. So again, just kind of removing that little frayed edge around there. And I do clean out that dust from underneath. So if you're wondering what I keep doing, like this. I'm just cleaning out that dust from underneath the nail. And let's size that in there. All right, now that's looking a lot better to me. So I think once we get this nail on there, I think that's going to fit just right into that nail. Now, I want you guys to notice, and this does look a little bit bigger on camera. Everything is in HD here on the camera. But you see there's a little bit of space right up in here between that tip and the cuticle. I'm not going to be applying that tip right onto that cuticle area. I want to make sure that I'm leaving just a tiny little bit of space because I don't want my gel to come in contact with that skin. So that's why I do leave just a tiny little bit of space, and we will use our electric file to kind of file that down and make that flush down to that natural nail so that we don't have that gap or a ledge in the back. So we'll get to that in just a second. But now that we've got our tips sized out, now we can go back and we can prep that nail. The reason that I didn't prep that nail prior to getting our tips sized out and all of that is because when you're filing the tips, you could be touching this nail, you could be getting dust on this nail. So we want to make sure that our natural nail is nice and clean and dust-free and germ-free. So that's why we do our prep on our tips, prep our tips first, and then we'll prep our natural nail. Now, one other thing that we do need to do with our tips is you can kind of see that the well of the tip, so that area that we're going to adhere that tip to, that does look like it's pre-etched. And what I mean by that is it does have a little bit of texture in the back, but I still like to go through and really make sure that that does have a good amount of texture to it. So I am going to go into my e-file here. I'm going to change out my bit, and I'm going to grab my Mandrel, and then I'm going to grab a brand new sanding band. And I always use a new sanding band, whether it's on myself, whether it's on a client, whether it's on the trainer hand. I always grab a new sanding band for every new set so that I know for sure that this bit has the right amount of grit to it so that it's not worn down like our older bit. Okay, and these are also not sanitizable and disinfectable. That mandrel underneath, that metal bit underneath, that is sanitizable and disinfectable, but not the sanding bands themselves. Okay, so we are going to go through and we are going to remove the shine a little bit farther down than where this actually sits, because if you take a look, you're going to see, let me come in a little closer, you're going to see I'm going to adhere the tip right about here. But there's a little bit of space right through here that still is shiny. It's not that pre-etched area. And I want to make sure that the whole entire area that's going to come in contact with that nail is going to be etched. So that way I'm not going to have any lifting or separation, because we are using a gel to adhere these tips today. And gel does not like to stick to a shiny surface. So that's why we want to make sure that we go through, completely remove the shine from all of that contact area that is going to be adhered to that natural nail. So just taking my sanding band here, coming through and just gently removing the shine from that whole well. And then I will grab my brush. I'm just going to dust out the well of that tip. And we'll check that one more time. And that looks like the whole thing is going to be etched all the way down the whole length of that nail where it's going to adhere to. Now, once we have this etched and ready to go, now we can go through with the rest of our prep. So we've already gone through and pushed back the cuticles. Now I'm going to go through and just gently remove the shine. So I'm going to work right up around my cuticle area, cleaning up that cuticle, and then I'm going to feather my bit all the way through that natural nail, that whole length of the nail, just to gently remove the shine, make sure that we have a little bit of texture to that nail, and we're just kind of breaking up the surface oils on that nail plate. And that's all that we have to do, you guys. It's not a complicated process. It's not a lot of work. And I think the biggest challenge that people have with their prep is that they feel like it went too fast, so they have to do it again. So a lot of times people will go through and do their prep, and then they come back and they do it again. And just checking one more time just to make sure, and just to make sure. And you guys, you got to just move on, because that really is all that you need to do. All you need to do is come up around that cuticle, making sure that cuticle area is nice and clean, that you've got all of that protein growth cleaned off, and then just follow through the rest of the nail. Making sure that there's no more shiny spots on that nail. That nail is nice and slightly textured. I'm just basically making contact with my bit. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on that. But again, this is where people tend to think, oh wait, I need to go through, I need to do that cuticle area one more time, or I need to get down here, and then I need to get here. You guys, stop. That's exactly what is going to take you extra time to do your prep. Your prep really should take about 3 to 5 minutes. And if you are spending extra time going over and over and over everything, that's where you're going to waste time because it's not necessary. So once we've got our shine removed, I'm just going to dust off all of that dust, clean off that nail as best as I can, and I'm just using my manicure brush. And at this point, I don't have any cleanser or anything on here. Right now, it's just a dry brush to help kind of get off the rest of that dust that's on there. After we have that nail nice and clean and dust free, that's when we're going to come in with our swipe. Now swipe is our cleanser, so I'm going to pump a little bit of this onto our brush. And then this is what we're going to use to really clean this nail surface. So this is going to help to take care of any last little teeny tiny dust particles. It's also going to help to remove any of those surface oils. And then it's also going to help to clean any bacteria or germs off of that nail. So this is how we're going to get that nice clean surface for our product to adhere to. Now at this point you can kind of see that the nail it's starting to kind of dry out back here at the cuticle area. Still looking a little bit, there's a little bit of moisture still down on that free edge. And now this nail looks nice and dry. So we are going to, somebody's asking what was just applied. This is our swipe, and swipe is our cleanser. So our swipe is going to take care of any germs, any bacteria. It's going to also help to remove any of those surface oils that are on the nail. So that's a great nail cleanser. And this is actually what I use for really any of my enhancement services, whether it's acrylic, hard gel, gel manicures, our full tip application. So anytime you need to cleanse the nail, this is a great product to use. And somebody else is asking, will you be saving this video? I missed the beginning. Yes, you guys, make sure you hit subscribe and join our channel here. But we do repost most of our live stream videos here, so this will be available. If you guys want to rewatch it, you're always welcome to come back and rewatch them later. And yes, we have over 3,000 videos for you guys here on our channel, so make sure to subscribe. Don't miss out on the great free education. So the next product we're going to be applying is our Protein Bond. And Protein Bond works like a double-sided tape, so it's going to stick down to that natural nail, but then it's going to leave a sticky surface for our gel to adhere to. And notice that when I apply my product, I start from the center and I work out to the sides, and then I work back to my cuticle. And by starting in the center and then working out to the sides and then back to the cuticle, this is going to help to keep my product from flooding onto the skin or around that cuticle area. So we want to make sure that we're using our product nice and safely. And let's go ahead and close that up. Notice that I did do 2 coats of our Protein Bond. Anytime I use our tip and jewel adhesive, or if I'm doing extensions or anything like that, I do like to do 2 coats of the Protein Bond to make sure I've got really good adhesion. Okay, so we are going to be using our tip and jewel adhesive, and this is a gel. So I'm going to grab that. I'm also going to use my, I'm going to be using my dual-ended brush and spatula. And what this is, it's got a brush on one end, and then it's got a little spatula on the other end. That's why it's dual-ended brush and spatula. And we're going to be using the spatula end today. And when I use this, I'm just going to kind of scoop out a little bit of the gel. And actually, let me show you one other thing first. Let me grab another tip here really quick. So a lot of times what I see people do is they'll take their tip that they were going to adhere, and they'll come in and they'll scoop out a little bit of that gel, and then they'll use that, and then they'll stick that down onto the nail. Now, you guys, this is a great technique, but for me personally, I find that by having all of that gel, let me come in a little closer, by having all of that gel all the way across there, what can happen is I tend to get product squeezing out the end here and squeezing out the sides. So I'm just going to kind of show you what can potentially happen. So do you see how I've got that gel squeezing out the back side and then around the edges here? For me, when I do scoop up the product using the tip like that, that's usually when I tend to get that product kind of oozing out the sides. So I'm going to show you what works better for me. Let me clean off my nail here really quick. So I'm going to show you what works better for me to apply that and not have issues with it squeezing out the sides. So what I like to do is I'll take that spatula and I'll scoop up a little bit of that gel, and maybe just a little bit more. And then I'll use that spatula to apply that gel into the well of my tip. So I'm going to set that down right at kind of the edge where I took that shine off and just kind of spread that all the way back towards the cuticle. I think with our longer nail here, I may need just a little bit more. So I'm going to grab just a little bit more of that gel. And same thing, I'm going to set that right down into the well, pull that back towards the cuticle area, and then I'm going to use this edge. So this edge of the spatula, and I'm just going to kind of pull some of that gel out towards the side. Now I'm not bringing all of that gel all the way out to the edge, but just, I would say just a little, almost all the way to the edge. So what this is going to do, if you guys can take a look and see, you're going to see there's a little bit of an edge right through here that doesn't have gel on there. And that's exactly what I want, because when I apply my tip, a little bit of that gel is going to kind of make its way out to those edges, and it's not going to come off of that edge of the tip. So when we're putting this on, by kind of leaving that little bit of space at the edge, we're not going to get product squeezing out the sides. Okay. Now I am going to take that brush end. You can see I've got a little bit of that product kind of coming off the edge. I'm going to use that brush to just kind of push that back underneath so that I don't have any product up on the top. Now I'm going to show you guys one thing before I actually adhere this nail on. I'm going to show you exactly how I apply the tip before I actually put it on with the gel, because I want you guys to see this technique before we actually adhere the nail. So when I put my tip on, I don't just put that tip down flat onto the nail. What I like to do instead is I'm going to start at a slight downward angle. So if we look at this from the side view, I'm going to start with my tip at a slight downward angle, and you're going to notice I'm not right at that cuticle area. I'm just a little bit away from that cuticle area because I'm going to set that down and slide that back. So it's just a slight motion. I'm going to over exaggerate this, you guys, so you can really see what I'm doing. So I'm going to set that down, slide that tip back, and what that's going to do is that's going to also keep my gel from squeezing out back into that cuticle area. Again, if I were to just set that down flat, there's a good chance that you're going to get product squeezing out the back. So again, you're going to set that down, slide it back, and then you're going to rock that tip down, and then you're going to start to see your gel connect underneath here. Now, from this view, you can actually see that there is going to be a little bit of a gap in between my tip and that natural nail. And that's okay, because we're using the gel, it is going to fill that in. So that's one of the big reasons that I like to use the tip and jewel adhesive to adhere my tips, because it's a little bit thicker. So if you've got maybe a client with a little bit of an uneven nail or something like that, that little bit of a thicker gel is actually going to fill in any of those gaps, and you're not going to have to worry about those uneven nails or anything like that. So just to quick show you that, I wanted you guys to see that before we actually get into the application. And I'm going to take my tip and jewel adhesive, I'm going to close that up, and I'm going to set that aside, because what I've got now, let me back out here so you guys can see, I've got my Touch Cure light, and I'll turn that around so you can see. So what this is just a little, it's a little kind of a mini curing light. So when I push the button, you can see that the light comes on. This is going to help to cure the gel that I'm using to adhere the tip. And you can see when I touch the end, it turns off, turns on, off and on. So that's why it's called Touch Cure Light. So I do like to use this when I'm adhering these full cover tips, because I can use this light to just kind of freeze them into place. And Carolyn says, I'm just going to say, I love this light. She says, I love that light. And you guys, this light really is a great tool for you if you are working with the full cover tips because it's going to make your life a lot easier. Now, when I work with this, I want you guys to notice on a real client, I would keep the light probably about 6 inches away from the nail. I don't want to be working super, super close because if you keep that light super close onto that nail, you're going to get a little bit of a heat spike and that may be uncomfortable for your client. So make sure that when you're working, you do keep that a little ways away. Now, when I am working on the trainer hand and showing you guys this on camera, I do get a little bit closer so that I can keep everything in camera so that you can see. But just please know that it is highly recommended that you work about 6 inches away, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and actually apply our tip. I wanna make sure you guys get a good view of this. Let me come in a little closer there. Okay, so once again, we're gonna start with that tip at a slight downward angle, set that down, connect that by the cuticle area, and then slide that back so it's a little bit closer to the cuticle, but it's not squeezing any of that product out. And I'm going to slowly start to rock that down. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure at my cuticle area to really make sure that that cuticle is set down. And then just gently rocking that down towards the free edge. And again, you're noticing it pressing that gel all the way down to the free edge here. I'm going to leave a little pressure on there. I'm going to turn on my light and we're going to set that into place. So we're going to just hold this for, I would say, probably 20 seconds or so, 10 to 20 seconds, just kind of just enough time to really secure that tip into place. Once we have this secured, if you're doing a full set, you could go on to that next nail. So at this point, that's pretty secured on there. It's been about 25 seconds or so. So that's really secured on there. We'll turn that off. And again, if you were doing a full set, then you could go on to your next application. So you would take your next tip, put your gel in there, set that down, rock it down, adhere that for 10 to 20 seconds, and then go on to your next nail. Now, we're not doing the full set today, but I do want to make sure that I've cured this completely, okay? So if you're doing a full set, once you get all through 5 nails and you've got those tips froze on there, then you're going to go into your full UV LED light, and that's what I've got over here. So we're going to go in there, and I'm going to set my timer on that for a full 60 seconds. That way that gel underneath there is going to completely cure. Okay, we want to make sure that it has a full 60-second cure rather than just trying to use just the little touch cure light. If you just use the touch cure light, it's not going to fully cure. And let me show you what can happen or the reason it's not going to cure. Because if we turn this on, you can kind of see if I'm holding that in that little light area, there we go, you can see that it's only really hitting this area of my nail. It's not hitting that whole entire thing all the way down. So you really would have to make sure that that whole entire nail on all of its sides is under that light for a full 60 seconds. And it's really challenging to do that per nail because again, this is only it's only going to cure one nail at a time. If we were doing a full set, we would want to make sure that all of these nails are getting fully cured. So that's why we're going to use that the full UV LED light to cure that. It's going to get a much better, more even cure all the way through. And again, you guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Get all this great free education. The more you guys subscribe, the more we can give you free education. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. All right, so our nail is cured on there. It's ready to go. Now we are going to just finish this nail with a little bit of a design using our gel polish. If you needed to, you could go back through and apply maybe fiber gel or another product over the top if you need a little bit more structure. But these tips are actually pretty durable. So if I take a look, so here's one of our other tips here. If I look at this and try to bend this, I'm actually really trying to bend this, but these are pretty sturdy. They're pretty durable tips. So you don't necessarily have to put extra product on there. If you feel like you need more product for more strength, you can definitely use either our fiber gel or even just our regular ManiQ base and top coat. But for today, because we're going to be kind of layering in a design, I don't think I need to add any more of our any more gel over the top of this for now. Now, what I am going to do is go through, and again, I'm using my 180 file buffer combo, and I'm just going to kind of touch up my edges, make sure that everything is nice and straight, making sure that if I did have any last little bits of that gel, maybe squeeze out the side. I don't think I do. I've got maybe just a tiny little bit up in that corner, but I want to make sure that everything is nice and shaped evenly. And even though this is one of our XL square tips, I am going to kind of taper it in just a little bit. I actually like a little bit of kind of a taper onto my nails. I don't like them completely square, so I'm just going to taper that in just a little bit. And you guys, whatever shapes you like, you can customize these. If you want to shorten them up, you can shorten them up. You can just take your tip cutter. Oops, let me come back out there. So just take that tip cutter. So if you want to shorten that up, you can shorten that up a little bit, snip off that end, and you can go back and reshape. So however you like to, if you want to round out your corners a little bit more, you can definitely do that as well. All right, I think we're pretty good here. Now, we are going to do a gel application, or actually a gel polish application on top of this nail. So I do want to make sure, just like we did in the well of our tip, I want to make sure that I have a textured surface for my gel polish to adhere to. So I'm going to go back to my e-file. I'm going to keep my speed at about 5,000 RPMs, and I'm still going to be using that Mandrel and sanding band. And I'm going to come up around that cuticle. And you guys, there is just a tiny little bit of that gel that did kind of squeeze out. So I do want to make sure that I clean that up. And I'm also coming through that cuticle area to kind of taper that down a little bit and make sure that this nail is flush down to my natural nail so that there's no gaps or there's no ledges or anything that's going to catch or anything that my client is going to pick on. And that's one of the reasons that I do stay just a little ways away from that cuticle area when I'm applying that tip, so that I have a little bit of room to file and make that flush down to the natural nail. Now, just like when we were prepping, I'm going to go through and I'm going to completely remove the shine from the whole entire tip that we've got on here. Because we are going to be putting our gel polish over the top of this, I want to make sure that I've got really good texture over that whole surface of the nail. Now, there still is just a tiny little bit of that gel up around that cuticle area. If I can get that with my sanding band, that's great. But I want to show you one other bit that if you're having a little challenge getting it with the sanding band, you can switch over to your crosscut diamond. Actually, sorry, this is our diamond cuticle square bit. So if you take a look, let me come in nice and close on that. It's a diamond bit, so it is a very gentle bit, but it's got that flat top. So it's going to come right into that cuticle area. I'm still keeping my speed at about 5,000 RPMs, and I can use this right up around that cuticle area to really help kind of taper that down and kind of clean up that edge. And this bit is not going to cut or damage the skin. It's not going to damage that cuticle. So that's why I really like to use this bit, because you can get nice and close up into that cuticle area without causing any damage. Now notice that as I do file here, I'm not just keeping that bit right in that same area. I'm not going like this, you guys. This is what not to do. Don't just leave the bit in that one spot and kind of drag it through or kind of grind away. That kind of pressure and that staying in that spot over and over is going to start to kind of build up some heat. So we want to make sure that just kind of work in those small little kind of a feathering motion right up around that cuticle and just kind of coming back through, because this way we're not going to cause any friction, we're not going to cause any heat, we're not going to damage that nail or damage that cuticle. Okay, I think we're good there. I am going to grab my file here, just really quick, taking care of that last little edge right up around there. You guys just kind of tapering all the way through, making sure I've cleaned up that edge. All right, I think, whoops, I still see it. There it is. And let's go ahead and grab our nipper. So I think our nipper is going to be able to get right up in there. So again, this is just that last tiny little bit of gel around the edge, and I think we got that good. All right. Beautiful, right on there. All right, now at this point, let me find my manicure brush. I lost my manicure brush. Oh, there it is. So we're going to go through, we're going to dust off this nail one more time, clean out underneath that, back there, making sure we get all of that dust cleaned off our nail. Now, if you feel like you need to, clean this nail at all, you can use the ManiQ Cleanse. Now, before when we were cleaning our natural nail, we were using Swipe. Swipe has a little bit of acetone to it, and you want to make sure that you're not oversaturating the plastic tip with the acetone. So that's why I would recommend using the ManiQ Cleanser, because this does not have any acetone to it. So again, if you feel like you need to clean that, just take a small pump of that onto your manicure brush, and then you can go through and cleanse that nail, clean off any last little bits of dust. Now, the other reason that I don't like to use the Swipe over the tips, so again, that Swipe, is because that acetone can also start to smooth out that surface again. So that surface that we just went through and textured, if we used our Swipe on there, it would actually create too smooth of a surface, and chances are our top or our gel polish is going to chip off or peel off. So that's why we want to make sure that we're using the ManiQ Cleanse. If you do feel like you need to cleanse it, you don't necessarily have to cleanse it though. Usually just brushing off with your manicure brush and getting rid of that dust is going to be enough. But before we go on to our color, we're going to use one more coat of our protein bond. And this is going to help to give a little bit more adhesion. So same thing, I'm going to start a little ways away from that cuticle, work up to that cuticle, and all the way down through the whole entire nail. So making sure that I get a nice even coat. Now at this point, only one coat of protein bond is necessary, and then we will go into our color and our design. So I'm just going to set the hand off to the side, and we're going to do a little bit. I know I was telling you guys earlier, we're going to be doing an aquamarine stone inspired nail for today for those March birthdays. Aquamarine is the gemstone for March birthdays. So that is what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to be creating a sheer nail. So I'm going to start with our ManiQ base. And we're going to put a little bit of the ManiQ base onto our mixing tile here. Somebody was asking what the blue product was. Let me show you guys that one more time. So the blue product that I was using earlier, this is Swipe, and this is a cleanser. And somebody was asking, won't the acetone dissolve the tips? Yes, and that's the reason that I didn't use the Swipe to cleanse the tip. I used our ManiQ Cleanser instead. So ManiQ Cleanser does not have any acetone to it, so that's why I like to use that to cleanse over the tip rather than using the Swipe to cleanse. Okay, I hope that makes sense to you. Hope that cleared up a little bit of confusion. So again, what I've got here, just a little, it's our little art palette, but you guys, if you don't have this, you can grab, let me find mine here, you can get little ceramic tiles from the hardware store. So just something like that. It's just a little ceramic tile. It's nothing fancy, so you can use that as well if you don't have our little tiles like this. But we've got a little bit of our ManiQ base coat on there. I think I'm going to add a little bit more. When I'm mixing colors, I always want to make sure I mix enough to get all the way through the set so that I don't have to try to remix my color. If you have to remix color, there's a chance that you may not end up with the same exact color that you mixed first of all. So mix enough to get you all the way through your whole entire set. Now again, this is Aquamarine 101, and this is our gel polish. So I'm going to add just a little bit, just a tiny little bit, just kind of right through there. And you can see not much at all. I may add a little bit more as I go, but I'm going to start with this for now just to kind of see how that looks. And I'm just going to kind of press that together. Yeah, I think I'm going to need just a little bit more of that aquamarine. We are trying to create a sheer color, but I don't want it too sheer. I want a little bit of color in there. So maybe just a little bit more there. And I think I'm going to need just a little bit more, so I'm going to use a little bit more of that ManiQ base. And ManiQ is our gel polish system. It's a 3-step system. So it does have the base coat, the gel colors, and the top coat. and they are all soft gels. These can be soaked off, so if you do want to soak them off to remove the nails, you can definitely soak off everything that we've got on this nail so far. So everything on here will soak off with acetone. Okay, I think I'm liking how that color is looking. So we've got a really pretty aquamarine color here. And when we apply this, it is going to go on a little bit more sheer. So if I kind of spread that out a little bit, you'll be able to see it's a little bit more sheer. If you feel like you need a little bit more of that base to kind of thin it out and make it even more sheer, you could go ahead and add a little bit more. But I think we're going to be good with that color mixture for now. So what we're going to start with is I'm going to grab my gel brush, and this is our number 5. This is our blinged out brush, and I love this one. I like the shape of this one because it's got a little bit more kind of an oval to a square end, and for this nail, I think this is going to work really well. So we're going to start by just polishing on a nice thin coat of this. And again, you guys, you're seeing that this is still very sheer. I didn't want a lot of color to this, but as we do a few layers of this, we are going to get a little bit more color to it. So don't panic if you think that it's going on too light, it's going to be fine. And also don't panic if maybe say you got a little bit more, I'm just going to kind of exaggerate this here. So maybe you had a little bit more of your product over here and maybe you couldn't get it that perfect smooth application. Don't worry about that. Now do worry about that little piece of fuzz that's on the nail there. I just wanted to take that off. But if your product doesn't go on perfectly even, with this design, that's actually okay because it's going to just add a little bit more kind of depth and dimension. So at this point, what I did, I just put that nail into the light. We're going to freeze this in here, I would say 20 to 30 seconds or so, just to kind of set that product into place. And then we will continue on our design. Now, the next thing that I am going to be using for our design, let me come back here. This is our striping gel paint, and this one is called T-shirt. You can see right down there. So this is a liner brush, but it is a gel. So just that nice skinny little liner brush is what we're going to be using. And our nail is cured. So that first layer of our color is cured out. And let me readjust here. You want to see the brush again? Do you want to see the brush of the liner? Somebody's asking in the chat, can we see the brush again? So this is the liner brush. So just that really nice skinny little liner brush. The gel brush that I was using, this is our Pro Gel Sculptor number 5. This is the blinged out one. All right. So you guys definitely feel free to ask your questions here. I try to keep an eye on the chat, but sometimes you guys are just chatting a lot, which is great. We love to see you guys kind of interacting with us and with our team and our moderators and each other, but sometimes I miss the questions. So feel free to ask us questions. We've got a great team of moderators to help answer them as well. So I'm going to use that little striper brush, and I'm just going to kind of create some just wiggly little lines. And this is for those of us that have a little bit of a maybe a shaky hand. Maybe you're not too steady, and that is perfectly okay because you actually want to, I'm kind of over exaggerating this, but you kind of want to wiggle those lines a little bit more, get them a little bit more kind of uneven, and just kind of blending or kind of tapering those out. Now, at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab either my swipe or my ManiQ Cleanser. Either one is going to work fine. And let me show you what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to take a little bit of either one of those and press down the pump and put a little bit of that product up into that top cup. I'm going to grab, and I'm actually using one of our old gel brushes. I'm going to take a little bit, just a little bit of that ManiQ Cleanser, kind of dab that off, and I'm going to use that. Let me come in here a little closer. You can start to see that that white is starting to kind of bleed out just a little bit, which is exactly what we want. And I'm just going to use the brush with that little bit of ManiQ Cleanser to just kind of tap around the edges and just kind of get that to fade out just a little bit so that we don't have those really stark lines. we're creating a little bit more of a marble look here. And we want that to just kind of blend out a little bit. And we'll blend this one out just a little bit. If you feel like you need a little bit more of that ManiQ cleanser, I'm just going to wipe my brush out, and you can actually grab either a table towel or you can wipe it on that little tile that we were mixing our color onto, but just kind of clean off some of that extra polish that's on there. Take a little bit more of that ManiQ cleanser, and again, just kind of dabbing through, kind of getting those lines to blend just a little bit. Oops, sorry guys, I came off camera there. All right, I think I'm liking how that's looking, just kind of blending. So we're starting to get a little bit of a stone kind of a look. Now at this point, I do want to cure this again, but I could either go into my UV LED light, that full light, or I can use that same little touch cure light that I was using earlier. And that's what I'm going to use here at this point. Sometimes it's just easier to, especially if you're doing one nail at a time, you can use that touch cure light to kind of freeze that product into place, and then it'll be quick and easy for you to go back to your next layer. So again, that was maybe about 20 seconds or so. Now we're going to go back into our second layer of our little aquamarine mixture that we created here. And the reason that I'm layering this is so that I have a little bit more depth to the nail. Now we're not doing a dimensional nail sculpted with acrylic or hard gel. This is just going to be our design over the surface of our tip, but it's still going to look like there's a lot of dimension to it. It's going to look like these kind of cracks in our stone are really deep down into that stone. So same thing, we're going to go back into our light again for just another, I would say 20 to 30-second freeze. This time again, I'm going back to that full UV LED light. Again, it's just going to be easier to get that full cure on the whole nail rather than trying to use that touch cure light. I like to use the touch cure light when I'm doing a little bit more of my detail kind of work because I don't have to get that whole nail into the light every time. Okay, so that is our touch cure light. Shirley Tim says this is like marble. Yes, this is actually going to look like a marble or a stone look. So this is our aquamarine color nail today. So I'm going to do a second layer of our striping paint. So again, that's that white striping paint, just kind of taking a little bit off of there. Now I'm not going to go over those same areas. I'm going to kind of come in opposite directions. So we'll come from this side, maybe just kind of bring that down here. And maybe we'll do a little bit kind of right through here. And again, you guys, wiggly lines are going to be really good. All right, I think I kind of like how that's looking. Actually, maybe just a little bit more, just kind of wiggling through there. Okay, I think I like that. Same thing, I'm going to grab my ManiQ Cleanser, take a little bit of that into that top pump, tap off some of that extra, and use that brush to just kind of blend out that white, just so it kind of almost gets kind of smoky looking. So we're not trying to keep those stark, straight white lines. We're just kind of trying to smoke them out a little bit. And that's what the ManiQ Cleanser is going to help with. That's going to help to get kind of that blend and kind of that fade out. And I feel like I've got a little bit more in here than I want. So we're going to kind of tap from that other side. Okay, I think I'm liking that. And my line up top here is actually already kind of blending out on its own, which is great. Just going to kind of help that a little bit more. And I think I need just a little more movement to this line. I feel like this one was a little bit too straight. So I'm just kind of pushing that line a little bit so it just gives it a little bit more of a curve in there. Okay, you guys, I'm really liking how this is looking. So again, let me hit this with our touch cure light, freeze that art into place. And this is going to go for, again, maybe 20 seconds or so, just to set those lines into place. Now, we're going to go through with one more coat of our sheer blue mixture, our sheer aquamarine mixture, and then we'll add some final details onto this nail. So same color as we've been using, that mix that we created here. We'll take one more, and you can do as many layers of this as you want to create the depth and the color that you like. If you want it a little bit more sheer, I would say do less coats. If you want it a little bit more solid, I don't want to say opaque because we're not going to get an opaque nail because we mixed our color with the clear base. But the more layers you do, the more depth you're going to see. All right, let me go back into the light. And Lizzie says I should add some sparkle. Well, Lizzie, you are right on track because we are going to add a little bit of Fame Orbit to this. And I'm also going to add one more layer of our white. And what this is going to do, this is going to give us, again, a little bit more of that depth so that we're going to see this white really on the surface of the nail. So we got our nail in the light here for another 30 seconds or so. Let me just clean off my spatula. And all right, our nail is out of the light. We are good. So two things that we're going to add. We're going to add one final kind of outline or kind of detailing with our striper. So I'm going to grab that. And these are going to be really fine lines. And I'm just going to kind of take a look here, see where I want to put these. And maybe kind of right along here. Just really fine lines. So now you can see that how these last lines are looking a lot brighter. Um, it's adding just a lot more detail. And you know what? I'm actually going to freeze this one into place because I really like how that one is. And I don't want it to spread. I don't want it to run or move. I like how crisp that is. So again, I'm just going to kind of freeze that into place. And then we can figure out where we want to put our next line. You guys, sometimes as I work, I kind of just have to eyeball it and see exactly where I want to put those extra details. So maybe we're going to take one right through the top here. Okay, I like that. So again, I'm going to freeze that. And you guys make sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our lesson today, if you're enjoying our aquamarine stone today, hit that subscribe button. And I think maybe we need just a little bit more, maybe right through here. All right. Oh, I really like that. I love how that one looks. I'm going to definitely set that into place. So again, by putting these last details of our white on the top surface, this is how we're going to see a lot more depth because as we were layering these colors in there, those bottom layers are going to be a little bit darker with that aquamarine color over them. But then once we get to that top layer, it really makes that design pop. So at this point, we're going to add just a little bit of sparkle to our nail. Not a lot, just a little bit, just for some accents. Again, we've got Fame Orbit. And I'm going to grab my micro detailer. Now you guys, I have an old micro detailer, which you can kind of see the bristles are a little bit frayed out there. So I've tried to make sure that I get my brush back into shape, but unfortunately I can't bring this one back into shape. So I like to use this one for applying my glitter. So on our nail right now, we've got a tacky surface with our gel polish. So I'm just going to pick up just a little bit of that glitter and we'll set that down into just a few little spaces here. I'm not going to completely cover this nail in glitter. I'm just going to kind of accent in a few areas. So just kind of touching my brush into that glitter, tapping that down into that tacky surface. And maybe just a little bit over here. And you guys, this is where it gets really, really fun to just kind of add those last little accents of sparkle and just really make your design pop. So let's maybe just a little bit down here. All right, what do you guys think? Are you liking the nail? Let me know in the chat. Put some little aquamarine colored hearts in the chat if you can find those. If you're enjoying our nail today, let me know. All right, I think I'm liking our few little accents here. Actually, maybe just a little bit more right down through here. Okay, I think I like that. You guys, sounds like you guys are liking that. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to grab my stamper. And you guys, I know we're not stamping a design on today, but I like to use that stamper to really just press down those glitters onto that nail. This way, it's going to really kind of solidify them or kind of secure them down into that tacky surface so that they're not going to move and kind of go where I don't want them to go. One more way that I'm going to really secure those little pieces of glitter is I'm going to go back into my light for just maybe another, I don't know, I would say 10 to 20 seconds or so, just really quickly to kind of secure those little tiny pieces of glitter into that tacky surface. So it's going to give you guys one more chance to, well, not one more chance, you guys can always subscribe, but it's going to give you another chance to subscribe to our channel as we're waiting for that to cure out. But if you've been around our channel for a while, you know what time it is. When we get to our top coat, you can go ahead and do our top coat chant in the chat. But we're going to finish this nail with our top coat, and I've got our ultimate finish top coat. Now, you could definitely use other top coats if you want to. You could use the ManiQ top coat. You could use the conversion top coat. I actually really like the ultimate finish for a lot of reasons. First of all, this one is a little bit of a thicker top coat. So when I'm working over the glitters, I could either do 2 coats of, say if I was using my ManiQ top coat, I could do 2 coats of that because it's a little bit of a thinner top coat, and I want to use 2 coats to really seal in those glitters so I don't feel any texture. But because our ultimate finish is a little bit of a thicker top coat, it's gonna seal those glitters a little bit more, and I probably will only need 1 coat of my ultimate finish top coat. And then the other reason that I really love my ultimate finish top coat is because it's a tack-free top coat. So once this is cured in the light, I'm not going to have to worry about doing any cleansing or removing any tacky finish. There is a little tiny fuzz on there. I don't know where that came from, but want to make sure you get those little fuzzies off of there. But that is the reason that I really like the Ultimate Finish, because it's a really easy top coat to use. It's going to give you a really beautiful high shine, and then you're not going to have to wipe that tacky surface off at the end. So at this point, I would put this into the UV LED, the full UV LED, for a full 60 seconds. But just so you guys can see the final look, I'm just going to freeze that into place for 30, and then I'll show you that final look. And I know a couple of people in the chat here are saying, what is the top coat chant? You guys, we just do a little chant in the chat there just because we get excited about doing our top coat, because after you put the top coat on, that's when you really start to see your designs pop and you start to see all of that glitter sparkle. And so we've got our final design. Let me come in nice and close, give you guys a really, really good view here. So you can see that beautiful aquamarine stone. I'm trying to get a little bit better lighting here for you guys. Let me see if I can adjust. And yeah, maybe we'll go back. All right, you guys. So I think that's as good as I'm going to get for lighting here, but happy birthday to all of those March birthdays. I think we may have cut out for just a second, but I hope that we're back in. But you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you back next time. Thanks, everybody. Make sure to hit that subscribe button.